So today I wanted to revisit the idea of the GitHub Flow, and I have more than one reason for that. One is probably the main one is that we are close to a workshop about the tidyverse, and I want the GitHub Flow to be fresh in your brains, because we are going to use it to support the workshop. My idea is that if we instead of focusing on learning the GitHub Flow, we actually use it. My hope is that by repeating it many times, we will just kind of find it easier to implement. And another thing that it's kind of hidden behind this meetup is also the idea of facilitating contributions to the data science blog that we are running. And that also comes from the super exciting news that we already have a couple of new submissions, one by Jakob, one by Vincent. Also, everyone else is welcome to post there. And we didn't really know much, what use people would give to this post, but to this blog. But now I think, in conversation with Jackson, we kind of discussed that it could be a platform for teams to communicate within each other. Because you just created a category that, for example, has the name of the project you work on, and there you can kind of distill conversations that otherwise would be hidden on Slack. So once you kind of come up with a standard way of doing something, you can just write a blog and post it there, just as Jakob did. So I think that the use cases of Jakob and Vincent both demonstrate great uses for that post. So for many of you, this meetup may be just a repetition of what we did before, and you're welcome to use the time for something else. But for those who wouldn't mind revisiting it, stay around. So it is important because of we use it a lot here in 2 degrees, and not only here, but it also probably the most common workflow that I see out there. It's very simple and quite effective. So the resources link should take you to a Google Doc that I'm going to use as a roadmap. The idea is to start by doing, and then try to understand or break down what we did. So the very first thing that I would ask you to do is to go to the doc here at the date of today, and then ending with DSI, so 2020-07-28 DSI, so that you have access to the links. So if you're there, what we want to do actually is to, actually I'm going to give some time here because I see only a few people. So just to confirm, can you see my Google Doc here? Thumbs up? Yep. Okay, cool. So what we want to do is to, once you land there, you will have access to a bunch of links that I wanted to share with you. And under the heading Do, we are going to do the only kind of activity of today, really, which is to go to the blog post, or to the blog, actually. And once you're there, you will see that at the top right, there is an icon for GitHub. So what are we about to do? Well, what we are about to do is to create a draft for a new post. So each of those who want to practice this GitHub Flow with me today, I encourage you to do this. I mean, it's going to be like a toy example, but it will, by the end of this exercise that will last like only 5 minutes, you will have an open pull request on the blog repo that you can, in any point in time later, you can actually extend it to add like a real post. So for now, we just need like any change on the repo to be submitted as a pull request as a proposition for a new post. So the exercise then, to kind of resay what I just said, is to pretend that you want to submit a new post to this blog. And by doing so, we will be practicing the GitHub Flow. And we're going to be doing it in a very simple way, which involves only GitHub as a tool. The more complex workflow involves, for example, cloning the repository locally, maybe with RStudio or something. and doing work locally. But we are not going to cover that today. It is something that you will be expected to do during the Tidyverse workshop soon, but let's go one step at a time. So if you landed here at the page that shows the blog, the next thing I would like you to do is to get to the repository that contains the source code. That is where you have to submit your proposed post. So how you get there? Well, by clicking here on this GitHub icon on the top right. I'm gonna make this my screen a little bigger. You could navigate quickly to the GitHub repository that hosts the source code. As a detail that is not important that much, all the posts are inside this folder called posts, but for you to submit your pull request, you can change absolutely anything just to open a conversation with me or with Jackson or whoever maintains the blog and whoever is going to help you publish it. So all we need to do is to click here on add file and just create a new file that will eventually contain your blog post. But for now, it could be just an empty file. So all you need to do to actually initiate the process for submitting a blog post is just to create a new file. So I'm gonna do that here, and I'm doing it slowly to invite you to do the same thing with me. So I create here a new file, and as you can see, we are actually this link you could save if you wanted in your bookmarks, because that is the link. Sorry, the link that you need to that you need to create any new file on this repository. So here I'm gonna type something silly like my new post. You don't even need to type an extension, but let's say that I do want to say, okay, this is gonna be an RMD file, because I just know that eventually that's the format. But you don't have to. It could be just a name of a file. So let's do that. And it could be empty, but here I'm gonna say I have a space to start editing this file. I'm gonna say the cool stuff is about to come. So here you could probably describe a little bit what's the idea that you have for a blog post, and then just scroll down, and we have Klaus here. Let's admit him. Then you just scroll down and you will see the familiar interface for creating a commit on GitHub. Because I am an owner of the GitHub organization, I have the possibility to commit directly to the master branch, but I don't think you will have that option. And if you do, then instead of leaving this option set here, you just click here on create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request. So if you are already a little familiar with the GitHub Flow, you will have heard these words, branch, pull request, and the interface that I'm using right here to create this proposed blog post does all of that for me with very little effort. I'm using the GitHub Flow. So by clicking this option here, hi Uni, welcome. By clicking this option here, instead of proposing this new file to be into directly the main branch of my repo, I'm creating a new branch, and I can call it whatever really. I'm gonna call it Mauro's post. So I invite you to do the same. This particular interface may look again a little different for you if you do not have right access to this particular repo. And if you do, again, remember to click here on the create a new branch. By clicking here, create a new branch, this is where we are embracing this special flavor or this special way in which we work, which is called the Git Flow. So I just click on create new file. And by clicking that, I land on this new interface to create a pull request. If you want, you can extend here with a little comment, something like, hey, I have an idea for a post that I want to discuss. You continue to scroll down, you create a pull request, and kind of your job there has finished, is done. By doing that, whoever is monitoring and maintaining this repo, like me or Jackson, will get an email that will know that there is a new pull request, and then we're gonna come here to pull requests, and we are gonna see the pull request being submitted. So right now I see only one pull request by Jakob. So I encourage you, if you were able to follow along, I encourage you to submit a pull request so that we see a few more. And as you do that, I'm gonna show what is next. So what do you enable by doing what I just demonstrated? Okay, so now I'm going to play the role not of the person who submits the post, but the role of the person who actually reviews the post. I'm gonna, I land here on I'm notified that there is a pull request in this blog. So someone, like in this case, Jakob, wants to submit a new post. And I'm gonna help him by reviewing it, maybe just by brainstorming some ideas, fixing typos, moving the file to where it belongs. So I click on the pull request that he submitted, and I can see already some comments that he wrote. Actually, blah, blah, blah. It looks like this belongs to an older post. Yeah, that's from yesterday, he's saying. So maybe this is, maybe this is a good example. So this is a real pull request that he submitted yesterday. And as what would I do from the perspective of a reviewer? Well, I go to the files change tab. So as you can see, the big pull request tab has a number of sub tabs. The conversation tab is the one that you may be more familiar, where you can have a conversation with people. But then there is another ones that are really useful. Like for example, the one here to the right, files changed, shows me what files have changed since last time. So I'm going to do exactly that, but with a simpler pull request that I have just submitted. So I'm going back to pull request. Oh, I see like many posts now. So great. Let's see Daisy's pull request, for example, here. Great. So I see that there is one commit. I navigate to the files changed. I see that there is a new file here. It's called Daisy New Post. And she wrote, I have also a good idea. So now I could use this interface to review her pull request and say something like, sounds great, could you please do blah. And then we are already engaged in a conversation about her submission. From then onwards, we will start a conversation that will result in the publication. So exactly what I just demonstrated is all you need to do to initiate a submission. The process from beginning to end is now documented actually as a blog post in here. I have just published today a little post that explains the process, how you submit a new post, which is basically what we are covering today. Because I acknowledge that the very first post of this blog did encourage people to submit posts, but didn't explain how or what content you should submit. Basically, if you read this post, you have all the information that you need. All you need is just a title and some content, really. And then it is also nice to have a few other things, like a description for your post, maybe a photo, and what else? And a link to a personal website if you have one, and maybe a category if you want to kind of group that post to other posts that are alike. So with that, like categories, for example, you can filter, like in this case, we have the packed analysis category, for example, or the scenarios category. So you click on packed analysis and then you filter from all the posts that there are, just the ones that are specific to that particular project. So that's one way in which we envision the posts becoming like one way of formalizing communication between the teams. So with that, I encourage you to kind of read the post about how to submit posts, because there is a bit more than what I have just demonstrated. But with that, I'm going to go back to the document, open a little bit of a discussion, and then after we kind of consider your questions like openly and by you speaking, Then I would like to use the rest of the time to kind of break down what we have just done in a very kind of formal way and in a very visual way by walking through this kind of little tutorial where GitHub explains what it is, the GitHub Flow, and maybe if we have time by watching a video. But before we do that, please kind of speak up with kind of your comments, your questions, maybe about the flow or maybe about posts. So go ahead. Yeah. That's correct. That's correct. You could do that. I mean, the intention of what I demonstrated is to kind of put the barrier of kind of making a submission very low on the technical side, because what we value most is the content. So if you have a good idea, what you have just kind of explained is, of course, the ideal workflow where you kind of serve yourself to the entire process. You create a fork of the main repo. You create a branch, you add commits, and then you submit a pull request. And we can extend on that in a moment. But kind of the take-home message of this meetup is that what we value more in the blog is the content. So if you have a good idea, all you need to do is to do what I just demonstrated, or even less than that. You can just open a new issue on the blog repo and start discussing, saying, hey, I have this good idea, and I started this idea at this other repo, and you can just share a link to it so we can see what you have been working on, and then we walk you through that process. So what I'm saying is that I think that with Jackson, we, hopefully you can say if it's not what we discussed, but I interpret that, we are happy to invest a little bit of our technical effort in allowing people to share their work, because we value what we are doing and we care a little less about how you do it. So if you do want to practice a GitHub Flow, feel free to do, Vincent, what you did actually when you submitted your post and what you just said. The long loop where you create a fork, you add your submission as a new commit in a new branch, and then you submit a pull request. But you don't have to. We value more your ideas than your workflow. It's totally up to you if you do want to practice the GitHub Flow. Do we have some other question? Because I have also a 4 minutes video that Daisy and Jakob saw that I think is pretty cool, because it kind of explains what Vincent used, because he's already familiar with GitHub Flow. He already used some jargon that I would like to kind of clarify through a 4 minutes video. But before that, do we have any other question that may help actually interpret that video? Okay, cool. So what you're going to see in the video basically is how GitHub sells itself, and you will notice that the GitHub Flow, so this process by which people submit changes to projects, is so much the core of what GitHub proposes people to do, that it seems like it's a good idea, right? So it is also kind of capturing the image that you see now on screen. So can you confirm that you read here, understanding the GitHub Flow? Thumbs up, anyone? Yes, cool, thanks. So basically this post, which I also link on the Google Doc, kind of captures the essence of what we did, what I did, when I added that file, and what Vincent said. So the video is going to extend on this, but let me kind of show you how it works. So basically, everything starts by this Y icon here is the idea of creating a new branch. So a project has a main branch that is the one that is exposed to the public in the case of the blog post, the main branch is the one that actually publishes the content. But there are maybe many other branches where we are discussing potential posts that are not exposed. So a user could not go to the website and see like an idea that is still kind of half-baked. We could be kind of discussing something with Daisy, with Jaco, with Vincent, something that is not yet ready, and no one will see that on the website. They might see the discussion, the public discussion on the repo, but not on the website. So everything starts from creating that branch, right? Once you create that branch, then the next step is to kind of start adding commits, start changing the project in any meaningful way. So in the case of the example that I showed, when I created a file, I remember that I clicked this button that said do not do it on the master branch, do it in a new branch, and I called that branch something like Mauro's branch or Mauro's new post. So that was the first step, and the second step was actually adding the file. So adding the file, belongs to this little part here where I'm actually adding commits. Remember, commits on Git are just this very special flavor of this very special way of creating snapshots of the history of your project or leaving flags along the way as you work in your project. So that's the second step, which I did by actually creating a new file and adding some text into it. And then the third step is actually creating a pull request. So remember that when I saved that file on GitHub, I think I clicked the green button that said something like proposed change or proposed new file. Then I didn't just finish there. I was sent to an interface to actually create a pull request. So there is where I officially opened the door to a discussion with the maintainers of the repository, and it is what it makes GitHub so powerful, because it allows, in a very fluid way, in a way that is very close to the way we work, allows a communication, a conversation among collaborators. So then the next step is to actually have that discussion. I wrote a little comment on the review, for example, of the pull request that Daisy submitted. She may have different opinions. We may have work together on ideas, and only once we are finished. The deploy stage is when we actually accept the changes, and then those changes become integrated into the website, so the user can see them. And this is here at the end. Where basically the changes that we have been discussing, we actually include them in the main branch by what's called merging the pull request into the master branch of the main repository. And that is what will expose the finished version of, in this case, a blog post to the website and to the world. So that is it. So that is kind of like a revisiting and kind of breaking down what I did very quickly from the GitHub interface. And I'm going to pause here once again to see if there is any questions here. And then we are going to revisit the same thing again in an even more visual way, which is this 4-minute video that should take us to almost the end of the meeting. So second pause here. Do we have questions or comments? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a very, very fair point. The little kind of explanation that I gave here didn't explain much about this idea of forks, but it's true that forks are kind of a fundamental part of the workflow. And most of the problem comes from the fact that we have too much access generally to, I don't know, too much maybe is not the word, but basically. So if you have no access to write to a repository, then you have no other choice than creating a fork. And then the fork idea becomes more natural because that's for you as a contributor, that's how it goes. So you have no choice, so you don't even need to think about it. It just happens. But because, as members of the 2 Degrees organizations, we can choose to give people right access to the repositories we maintain, then is when the problem comes. And sometimes it is a good decision because, if you are, the main contributor to a repository, of course you do need right access, and you may be in the role of actually maintaining someone else's contributions, right? So it makes sense for you to have right access. But that it's true, it adds a layer of complication, so you may not realize that you are not working on your own fork of the repo, but you are working on the main repository. Or you realize, and for some reason you want to actually push something directly to what's called the upstream. I'm not going to have time today to get into that too much, but I do have a little post here. It's called Github Flow that says submit pull request from any branch except master. So that post explains mostly of what is the problem and how that problem would manifest for you when you actually have created a commit in a master branch. So basically, the rule of the thumb is like never use the master branch, even if you do have access to the main repository. Even when I work with myself, I create a branch, work on that branch, then push it to my own repo, and then merge it or even merge many commits that I have on that branch. So if you do that, you will stay away of problems most of the time. And the distinction between fork and not fork is not going to come bite you so much. But I will take your comment as very important and as something that I will probably spend like maybe a whole meetup talking about. So, any other question? Okay, we only have 2 minutes. Do we have Data Herald after ourselves? Scansa. Okay. Take over. Okay, this is to borrow 2 minutes and a half from to get over. Okay, so okay, so the idea is, do you see the big icon, the big GitHub icon here? Right. So if you're in the dock, you may want to play this video yourself for better sound and mute what I'm doing. But I'm gonna play it, hoping that you will hear it well. Basically, it's gonna show you a little story of some developers and one contributor, or one user actually, and how they use the Git flow to improve the project. And hopefully, with what we discussed today, you will be able to map what we did, the different components of what we did, to different parts of this video. We'll check on that when we finish. So let's see. I'm gonna play 2 seconds to see if you can hear it well.
Well, GitHub is a platform that helps people solve problems by building software together. Does it work? This is Sam. Sam
Could you hear that? Yes? Okay, so let's continue then.
works on tractors all day, but not in the way you might be thinking. She builds the software that helps make tractors more efficient. And she does this on GitHub with the help of her team, VJ, Melinda, and Mike. Now, even though they all work on the same project, Sam and her team don't all work in the same part of the world. This is Eddie. Eddie also works on tractors all day, except he actually works on the tractors all day. And this is the Harvester L700. It's the latest flagship in the company's fleet of tractors. It's full of sensors and processors that produce a ton of diagnostic data. Eddie has a great idea for how farmers might share their data and improve their harvests. So Eddie opens an issue on GitHub. Issues are discussion threads where people can report bugs, request features, or even just ask questions. Sam is the first one on her team to see Eddie's issue, and she thinks that VJ would be the best person to start the job. And here's where we get into the nuts and bolts. Eddie isn't the only person using the Harvester L700. All over the world, other tractors are collecting moisture data, and they need to keep running smoothly even while VJ is working on the new features. He needs a dedicated place to experiment, so none of his changes end up on the farm before they're ready. So he creates a branch of the code, an alternate timeline where he can safely make changes to the software. Now he's ready to start writing the new feature. GitHub tracks Vijay's changes and saves snapshots of his progress. When he's ready to collaborate on the changes with his team, he opens a pull request on GitHub. Pull requests let you show others the changes you're proposing so they can review and discuss them. This means Vijay's teammates can help with roadblocks and even make improvements. On GitHub, everyone has a copy of the project. So if Melinda has an idea for something that will help make Vijay's work even better, she can add it to the branch herself. GitHub keeps a record of everyone's contributions and feedback in the pull request, alongside relevant messages from the team's other systems. Once the team has signed off on the changes, Vijay can incorporate the new code into the project. The new feature will be available to everyone as soon as he merges it in. Now farmers everywhere can all benefit from Eddie's great idea. But this is really only the beginning of the story. Because GitHub is the largest community of developers in the world, with millions of people sharing their projects, Eddie's idea could end up helping people in unimaginable ways. What kinds of problems are you trying to solve? Whether you're an engineer, a code enthusiast, or even a farmer trying to harvest grain.
Okay, we're here on the same page. Good. Gonna do a very quick debrief of the video, trying to relate that to what it could mean if we thought that the story, instead of being tractors and those people, it was us, contributing to the blog. So someone like Sam could be someone like Jackson or me that work on the code side of things. So someone like I think it was Eddie, the one who submitted who had an idea and wanted to start a conversation. Maybe that is, in this case, someone like Vincent, who wanted to submit a new post and had a new idea, but he still didn't actually do any change in the repo. Then someone like Vijay, who was actually the person doing the change, in this case could also be Vincent. That's different from the video. In the video, Vijay worked on the code side of things, and the person who had the idea was someone that didn't work on the team. But in this case, he's both. He's someone who wants to see the product, who wants to see the blog published, but at the same time, he's the contributor, right? So he's both Vijay and Eddie. And then when you see the tractor itself is the website for us. So the tractor, with all the devices that it has, that is the public manifestation of the product that they build. So in our case, the public face of our product is the website. In this case, the blog, right? Each of those posts. So the reason why the tractor split in two and created a branch is because at the same time that you want to be working and experimenting with things that might break, at the same time you need to have a stable branch that continues delivering the product to the world, right? The tractors need to continue to work even if in the process of making it better you are messing up. So in our case, while we play with a new submission, a new post, we still need the website to be serving the posts to the readers, right? And then finally, the conversations with Melinda, Sam, I think it was Mike as well, and all that conversation is the pull request. Everyone has ideas, proposes changes. Some of them actually make some contributions, and then when we all agree that the product is ready to go, maybe we passed, for example, a spell check, and we read what or a style guide to the post that you publish or you submit. Then we merge that pull request. And that merging process, what it does is that your blog or your post that was not exposed now suddenly becomes exposed, and everyone else around the world sees that public manifestation of the change. Which, in the case of the video, was those tractors became purple and have better devices. So that is kind of the change that is now an improved version of the older product. So that's the end, and I'm 6 minutes above the threshold. So I hope that clarified. If we have any parting comment, go ahead. And if you don't have it very polished, I encourage you to put it here on the questions section in the doc, and I will be sure to answer it. So, any question or comment before we go? Yeah. Okay, cool. Also, as I say goodbye, I know that some people here, know this very well, so I know that it's not useful for everyone. But also, just to sense what's how much useful more of these things could be before the tidyverse tutorial. I would like you to write a little note here if you say, yeah, I'm already super familiar with this. This was like a little bit like I didn't need it, or if you found that something of this was useful. With that, I thank you very much for your time, and then we catch up there on Slack, and see you next time. Bye bye. Ciao ciao.